Hi. Today I'm going to be making a sheet pan chicken and vegetables for two or more. The thing I like about this recipe, well, there's a lot of things, but one, it can be made for one or two people, or you can easily expand it if you're cooking for more. I find oftentimes people are households of one or two, and it can be hard sometimes to pare down these bigger recipes. So this is a really great one. It's also really adaptable with the type of vegetables that you use, or you could even change out the protein if you want to. All right, so to get started, the base of it is going to be a sweet potato, vegetables, and chicken, and then we're going to season it up. So I need 2 cups of veggies. So I chose to use broccoli and onion. You just need a vegetable that's going to roast well. And then once you choose the veggies that you're using, we want to think about size, because roasting is going to be kind of hot temperature in the oven for about 25 minutes. Some vegetables take quite a bit longer to roast than others. So if something has a high water content like zucchini or asparagus, it's going to roast fairly quickly, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes. If something is more like a sweet potato or a carrot, it's going to need longer. And so your longer vegetables, you just want to cut smaller. And then the things that are going to roast more quickly, if you keep them in bigger pieces, it'll even it all out. And so through a little bit of practice, you'll figure that out as you go. But just do your best. If you have to pull something off, before the rest of it's done, it still works. So for my onion, I'm just going to do slices of this onion. I prefer onion in kind of bigger pieces when I'm roasting it. And then with whatever veggies you're using, just put them into a bowl. We'll kind of season them there, and then we'll add them to the tray. And then broccoli, probably about similar size as the onion. We'll kind of keep them in these spears, but cut the big ones in half. Bell pepper would be really good in here. Green beans, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. There's so many great vegetables out there that you could roast. Okay. So onion and broccoli in your bowl. And then for your sweet potato, you can keep the skin off or you can peel it. Either one's okay. Go with what you like. If you have kids, sometimes the peel can be a little bit tough. They might not like the texture as much, so maybe you take the peel off. Sometimes I even like to peel half of it so that I get some of the taste and texture and the fiber from that peel, but it's not overwhelming with too many bites that might have a tough peel. So just make it striped. And I would cut your sweet potato a little bit on the smaller size. If you have really big chunks, they're going to take longer to cook. So we'll just get it into more manageable pieces here. If you'd prefer to use regular potato or maybe a winter squash here, you could do that as well. Or you could leave the kind of starchier vegetable out and then just serve the veggies and chicken with another starch on the side. The nice thing about this is that it's just making your whole meal happen on one pan. So limit the amount of pans we're using. Sometimes this sweet potato has a little bit of what I might call like a foaminess to the top of it. It's probably fine to eat, but sometimes the texture can be a little funny. So I'm just going to cut that part off. We'll compost that and I'll use the rest. Okay, and sweet potatoes can go right in with your veggies. Okay. And here I have 2 chicken thighs because I'm going to, again, focus on making this for 2 people or 1 person, and then you have leftovers. If your chicken thighs, the ones you bought are really small, or you have someone who, eats more, has a larger appetite, maybe you do 3 or 4, and you're still going to kind of do the volume for the 2 people in your household. Okay, so to make our seasoning, we need paprika, Italian seasoning, onion powder, garlic powder. So pretty common seasonings in your house. I have my massive Italian seasoning here, but I'm going through it. I tend to use it quite a bit. If you don't have Italian seasoning, feel free to use a common dried herb in your house. If you tend to like oregano, thyme, parsley, basil, any of those would work. maybe start in a little bit of a smaller amount if you're unsure how much of that volume you want. Since this is a blend, we can use a little bit more of it. Sometimes thyme and oregano can be quite strong. So maybe you just cut down the volume if you don't have just the Italian. All right, paprika, same thing, half a teaspoon. You can also use smoked paprika if you like it. It will have a little bit of a spiciness to it and that smoky flavor. Plain might be a little more kid-friendly because it's not going to have that spice. All right, garlic powder. I'm going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder and onion powder. Again, if you know you really like a lot of garlic, feel free to double. But you can always make this based on the exact amounts the first time and then adjust the second time you make it to make it your own. Okay. And then 1/4 teaspoon of salt and pepper. My pepper, I don't really measure. I just kind of grind it in there. And I will measure the salt. So a 1/4 teaspoon of salt makes the whole dish about 300 milligrams of sodium or so kind of per serving, which still keeps it a really lower sodium option in general. So if you watch your salt, it still keeps it in check while also still kind of balancing out and enhancing those flavors. When we use fresh ingredients like this and not a lot of prepackaged products, there isn't sodium or much sodium in this regular stuff. So we have opportunity to use a little salt and bring out some of that flavor. Okay, now to put it all together. So it calls for a tablespoon of olive oil. And I'm going to put a little bit on the chicken and then the rest on the veggies. And I'm just going to kind of guesstimate here. Feel free to measure again if this is your first time. Uh-oh. Back up. You don't want to over oil because it can kind of make the veggies soggy. So definitely measure your first time unless you're an experienced cook who really uses oil a lot and can really guess that right volume. Okay. So let's just give these a little toss to kind of evenly move around that oil. Same thing with our chicken. Okay, and then we really just want to put about, I would say, 1/3 of this on the chicken and then the rest on the veggies. You could probably mix this all in one bowl. I can't see why you couldn't. And just move it around so all that seasoning kind of covers most of your chicken and most of your veggies. It does tend to like kind of stick in one spot, but just keep moving it around. All right, and so I've got my baking sheet here. I am using a sheet of parchment paper. It makes cleanup a lot quicker and makes sure that things don't stick. I just find parchment paper is a nice one to use. So I'll put my chicken on one side. And with the chicken thighs, there was kind of a, that one side, if you're familiar with using chicken thighs, you'll get that kind of strip of fat. I just trimmed that off so that I wasn't in there and threw that away. And so for the most part, they're fairly lean. Okay. Get your veggies tossed around, distribute that oil and those seasonings. I'm going to add a little more oil. Maybe I should have measured. Just looking a little dry. So maybe it's 1 to 2 tablespoons or 1.5. All right, and then get your veggies just evenly distributed out on that pan. And we really want a single layer, and that's going to help them roast evenly and nicely. And so just flatten things out here so that all your veggies are touching the pan if possible. I was thinking about doing this on my kind of 1/4 sheet pan that I have, but I was realizing that even this version for 2 would take up more space. So use a full-size sheet pan even if you're just making the small version. Again, with these veggies, we still have a nice amount of volume, so we want to make sure everything has some good cooking space. Okay, so these are gonna go in the oven at 425, about 25, maybe up to 30 minutes, depending on the types of veggies you're using or the size of your meat. Definitely check it. I would probably go in at about 10 to 15 minutes, toss things around a little bit. Maybe you flip the chicken over if you want to, and see how things are doing, and then check back at 20 to 25. Definitely temp your chicken, make sure it's reached 165 and your veggies are tender, and then it'll be done. So I'll get mine cooked and then I'll bring it back and show you what it looks like. All right, so my chicken and vegetables are done. Make sure you turn your oven off. And meat thermometer. Definitely highly recommend using a meat thermometer. Go right in the center. So this one's in the low 170s. This one reached up to 180, so they could have been done a couple minutes earlier, but I wanted to make sure my veggies were fully done, so they got a little bit warm. Especially with chicken thighs, you can go a little bit over 165 and they're not going to dry out very easily. If you're using chicken breast, you want to really be a little more careful with trying to pause right at that 165, 170 range just so you avoid them drying out. All right, so we've got this. Let me grab a spatula. Delicious looking sheet pan meal. A little messy, right? We're glad we have that parchment paper. I did give this a toss halfway through and it took right about the 25-minute mark. And so for serving here, just take a big scoop of this, right? You got your veggies, you got your starch in there with the potato, some nice protein with that chicken. Yum. All right, let's give it a taste. I'm just gonna try my veggies at this point, see how the seasonings are. Remember to take in your food before you start eating. It's so easy for us to jump right into eating and kind of rush through it, especially if we're really hungry. But the more that we can pause and take in kind of the senses around your food, the sight of it, the smell of it, the taste, it really helps us enjoy our food more, feel more connected, and actually helps us tune into our body so we can really feel those signs of comfortable fullness when they arise. It's lovely. Nothing's overpowering. Feels like the right level of saltiness for me. Good flavors coming through, but nothing is super, super strong. I think the seasonings we use blend really well. So I think it's delicious. If you wanted to add a little bit of a drizzle of some favorite sauce that you like, that might be delicious. So feel free to make it your own from here. But I hope that you give this one a try. It's really good.